Speaker pro tem. Again, Patrick McHenry has been serving in this capacity for the better part of 2+ weeks, but his hands are tied. You know, his sole role is to preside over the election of a new speaker. And so short of that, that is why the House has not been able to resume with legislative business. So what members are proposing is that he get some additional power to at least allow those functions to be able to occur, so that it's more than just kind of, at this point in time, a ceremonial role, and that he can actually have that function of being able to move legislation forward, which is critical because we know President Biden is on the verge of introducing this $100 billion foreign aid package to assist Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, shore up the U.S.-Mexico border. Can't get done unless there's a speaker. We have this funding deadline, November 17th. You know, funding for the government was temporarily extended for about 45 days. We're less than a month away from that new deadline. Need a speaker to get that done. So the hope is by empowering McHenry to at least allow that kind of legislative business to move forward, that they can keep doing the business of the Congress, but also give Jim Jordan that space to build support for a more permanent speakership.
But if you are a voter and you are a voter who generally supports the Republican Party and votes for Republican candidates in the House of Representatives, aren't you sort of thinking to yourself, if these guys can't get their act together on something as simple as choosing a leader for the majority, how can we continue to empower them at the polling booth? And so I wonder what the mood among, you know, sort of cut and dried Republicans is this morning, because it doesn't look good. I mean, they can say, look, we got to figure out what we need to do, and it's going to take us 3 months, and so give us, you know, but like it just is a bad look at, as you say, Nicole, a critical time in this country's history. And
I just thought, you know, there's sort of so much wrangling over every single step. I mean, even if they can agree that let's give, you know, an extension to our temporary speaker, then there's going to be a whole other debate about, well, what additional responsibilities should we empower him with, right? And so there's going to be a disagreement about that. They just...
Yeah, right, exactly. Good point.
Yeah, just a general lack of consensus within the party has got to be making some of these representatives really nervous.
Well, you know, I did talk to Congressman Mike Lawler just yesterday about that. I mean, he represents a swing district in New York, Long Island, you know, and I asked him about whether or not that's kind of kicking the can down the road if they move forward with McHenry for a certain period of time. And he said no, because time is really of essence. I mean, there is business that needs to be handled right now. And, you know, I think if you pull back and do the 30,000-foot view, and I think it's been clear in our reporting over the last 2.5 weeks, there are some very deep fractures within this Republican conference. And I think to expect that that gets resolved overnight is probably unrealistic. And so that is why a lot of these members are saying, you know, we need more time. We have heard that cry really from members over these last couple of weeks. I mean, yes, there are some who are tired with the meetings, tired of the therapy sessions, and just want to get to back to the business of legislating. But as we have also seen, every time a new candidate's name is brought up, it's hard for them to find consensus. And I have had some members say, no, you know, give us that space and time to do that. And so, you know, it kind of cuts both ways. You know, I think if Republicans are to be thoughtful about this, then perhaps it does make sense to give them some space. But if they continue to duke it out and they just can't get there, then yes, one might question, what's the point? So
one last thing, Nicole. You know, in addition to this breaking news, we had the breaking news that former President Trump's lawyer, Sidney Powell, is pleading guilty in that Georgia case. Former President Trump was a vocal supporter of Jim Jordan and had his, you know, what does he always say in his tweets, his full support, you know, and yet for Republicans who continue to stand by the president, I mean, everybody, it seems recently that the former president is supporting loses.
Well,
right?
the last 3 speakers were all big fans of Donald Trump and him fans of them.
Yeah, but even like in actual elections,
that's
like,
true,
right?
Yeah.
The people that he's throwing his support behind are losing elections, and in this case, Jim Jordan is losing this bid for speakership. Are Republicans starting to finally, and I know the news is new, but this concept isn't new, that, look, Donald Trump is not the kingmaker that perhaps some people make him out to be?
Yeah, well, I think there are some differences of opinion within the Republican conference on that. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of members of Congress have endorsed him and intend to stick by him. But, you know, it is an individual decision for many members, particularly those who are in more vulnerable swing districts, which I think is why some of them are having some difficulty with Jordan, because it's like, is this really a guy that you can campaign with in 2024? You know, we heard from Ken Buck, who had expressed some reservations about Jim Jordan and, for instance, his position on the 2020 election. He just wanted some kind of guarantee from Jordan that he would say publicly that Trump lost the 2020 election, and he claims he didn't necessarily get that. So it is a factor and a decision for some members, but at the same token, as we know, you know, the former president has a very strong base, and that includes here in this Congress, and I don't necessarily expect that that would recede.
All right, Nicole Killian for us on the Hill. As always, Nicole, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you.
You bet.
You have to save that question for our politics conversation that we have every Friday.
Oh, right.
Because
Yeah.
I think it's a good question, because
Yeah.
what we hear over and over again is that the former president still has a tremendous amount of sway within the Republican Party.
Right. And that may be because he's polling amongst other Republican candidates vying for the presidency at like 40% over the next guy, maybe
Yeah.
DeSantis. But when it comes to
In
actual real
practice.
politics, we're not seeing that level of support that that you would have seen, that fealty that we might have seen, you know, 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So we'll see. All right. The federal government has a warning about potential threats in the U.S. as a result of the Israel-Hamas war. After the break, what the latest intelligence says.
On Face the Nation, the way to learn is to listen.
We may have a recession.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
Everybody wakes up in the